Bitcoin blasted up to 42,000 this morning before settling back down just a tiny bit. People in the crypto space who have stuck around are really feeling the momentum has massively shifted. Those outside of the crypto space are starting to think about crypto, but are still mostly watching it passively from the sidelines. Well, let's see today what the price action is looking like in both Bitcoin, but also the dollar index that can massively affect how much money comes into riskier assets like crypto. Then let's look at some altcoins together. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you're looking for crypto news without context, or you're looking for panic selling and FOMOing in, unfortunately, you can find that in a lot of other places, but that's not what you get here. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize the potential for life-changing gains over a 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, you're in exactly the right place and the right family. All right. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. Paul is not a financial advisor as well. And none of this would be taken as financial advice. Nurse Cooper already jumping in. Yo, smash and rain. Dang it. Cool. Chris Ashby says, happy Monday. Thanks for coming on, Paul. And thanks for the stream, Jay. All right. As you know, today is, well, not Wednesday. It's Monday. But I asked if we could move it up because I have some business stuff to deal with later through the rest of this week. And so Paul was gracious enough to join us today instead of Wednesday so that we can still have this weekly show. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I can see the comments now. So hi, Chris. Hi, Nurse Cooper. Chris again. And then Michael and Kelly as well. So fantastic that you could all make a Monday morning for you. And yeah, we like to mix it up a bit, don't we? So you never know what day it's going to be on. A bit like the markets, keep it uncertain. No, just kidding. It should be on a Wednesday, but obviously things happen. So it's nice that you could be here.
Kelly joining us. She says, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the stream. Our pleasure. So, Paul, you probably saw the Bitcoin move. That was exciting.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we were looking at the 42,000 target. I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago and a week ago, although it's less than a week ago now. It's just, I think, Wednesday last week. That was the level that I thought the market would get drawn to. And just to repeat what I was saying before, it just feels a bit like people want to get in, but the market's not going to let them get in. And this is a typical, it's really interesting that we're doing this on a Monday because it's a typical Monday morning. Been thinking about it over the weekend. You see the market rushing up to 42,000 and you see all this bullish stuff and then you just jump in and buy. And I've got the feeling now, and this is no more than an inkling, apart from it being a big resistance point, that we should see a correction. So I think it's time potentially, and I could be wrong, of course, like anybody else, but I would think it was an interesting time to suddenly decide to go long Bitcoin, seeing as it's been going up and giving clear signals for quite some time. So we might be on the cusp of a bit of a correction. And I think that's a correction in a bull market, to be clear. And I'd like to see the momentum come off a little bit just to give a chance to the traders to get out and then rebuy maybe a bit lower. But overall, that there's no need to do that if you're looking longer term, which I am. And the overall trend will stay positive. But there's a few little things that are, just turning away a little bit from the bullish side. And we'll look at those in the charts. The equity markets have been, they've been a one-way street, a really good rebound, really strong rebound. And again, there's no reason for me to change the bullish outlook into next year. And I believe it's going to accelerate. I'm just wondering whether there's the temptation to take some profits here from short-term traders is just getting a bit too much. Dollar's had a little bit of a bounce as well. So there's a few things, pointing to a bit of a correction. But I don't think that changes, as I say, the big picture outlook, which is one of a positive market for Bitcoin, certainly, and then everything will get dragged up with it, and the equity markets. And We've got an FOMC meeting, so an interest rate in the US meeting Wednesday week. So not this Wednesday, the following Wednesday. There shouldn't be any change in interest rates. But what I think might be interesting about that particular event is I think we're going to see the first signs of cracking in terms of where the interest rate profile will go. There'll be more of a chance of an interest rate cut discussed, or the market will read it like that. And it should also be remembered that this Friday we've got non-farm payrolls, and if they print weaker, then again that would be another piece in the puzzle for interest rates to come down. So I think the market is actually going to start talking about weaker interest rates. So we might see a bit of a correction into Friday, and then maybe things will start to turn around again. I'm not sure, but it just feels like a Monday morning. The market is sort of jumped into Bitcoin and it just needs to correct. But there's a few things on the horizon that I think will shape the longer term outlook of where interest rates will go. So that's why I don't think it's a complete change in trend. It's just going to be an interruption perhaps before we go higher and take out the new the all-time highs in the Nasdaq and the Dow and the S&P and everything else.
Yeah, agreed. Some more comments coming in. Delta Plane says, hi guys, market going crazy. Chris Ashby, the Bitcoin move was aggressive.
Certainly was.
Says Bitcoin is pumping. I can feel the FOMO. And Delta Plane makes a really good point. This is what I'm feeling too. I feel like, I think he's trying to say like the end of 2020 and later 2020, Bitcoin was just really moving up over time. And then the end of 2020, it really took off, leading into the greater bull market that happened like March of 2021 when a lot of the altcoins really popped off. But Bitcoin was just climbing pretty steadily end of 2020. It feels a lot like that.
Yeah, we've got the halving coming up, haven't we? I mean, that's getting ever closer. We've got we're moving into the election year. It all comes so much quicker than you think, doesn't it? And the interest rate profile going down is a major one. I don't know when CPI is coming out, but that is definitely a number to look out for. Although I use charts, that shapes the psychology. So it will be important to see if inflation is continuing to fall, and there's no reason why it shouldn't. Mm-hmm. So there's a few macro things that are pointing to next year. I mean, remember, this has been, I mean, I'm looking up at my charts here. This has been a consolidation. Look at the equity markets, a consolidation. You could almost say that in Bitcoin as well. It's been a consolidation. That whole period was basing period. So that's the foundation for which the market rallies. So this sharp move is what you expect when the market comes out of a base. That's the whole point of waiting so long for a base to complete. It is boring. It is like, where is this going to go? It's going sideways, and it grinds, and then everybody goes, I'm not interested anymore. And people like Nassim Taleb, who I respect.
That's exactly what the crypto winter was. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how market cycles are.
I have a lot of respect for Nassim Taleb, who was a advocate of Bitcoin and a very independent thinker. And he really turned on it. And I mentioned it just sort of in passing in the show, because when it was going sideways, he was saying something about, volume's so low, you can just spam it and push it around, or words to that effect, something like that. And I thought those comments are so strange. I don't understand why he's even saying that, because even as a trader, you wouldn't say that. And been very quiet on it. I've not seen any more comments now. And we're trading at 42,000. It's like, well, hang on, guys. Where's the what now? We're at 42,000. You missed the move. It's up 69% from the low in in September. Even more since the low of the low, which 170% it's up since the low of November last year, which was when we were saying
that makes me laugh. Because I see that happen in the crypto space all the time. And it probably has to do with psychological consistency, where people want to feel like they've got consistent behavior. Or like, for example, when they turn negative on things, and I see this in the crypto space, they emotionally turn negative on it. So they try to use all these logical arguments of why they're frustrated and turning against it, but their logical arguments don't quite add up because they aren't actually acting logical, they're acting emotional. And then when it flips around and goes the other way, they just get quiet. They don't know what to do because they've emotionally bought into it. Their logic has kind of failed, and they're like kind of just caught off guard and like don't know what to do. Now, some of them then later kind of do the mea culpa and like, oh man, I was acting emotional, and some never do. Ooh, and they just disappear because they don't want to jump in and be like, man, I didn't understand that, and like accept that they were just wrong. So they'd rather just not even participate. And I see that happen so much in crypto, even from people you would think would never do that stuff.
Think about, I mean, as I say, I have a lot of respect for Taleb. He's been, he's written some of the best books in finance, and he's one of the most interesting thinkers I think we've ever seen in modern times. One of the, and as a trader, I would respect his view. And we all get things wrong, and nobody gets it right all the time. And it's really important to say that. And there's no shame in saying, look, I think it was going to go down and it didn't, it went up. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Maybe he's going to be right in the long term. Maybe it will all go to zero, which is what he's thinking. But that sort of misses the point of how markets work. Markets don't work like that. Things that aren't worth anything, and I'm not saying it's not worth anything, I'm just saying that there are things that aren't worth anything that can rally aggressively. And we know that from meme coins. We know that from lots of things. You know, how do you value a meme coin? You can't value it. It's just what someone else will pay for it.
Just the greater fool theory. I hope somebody will pay more for this than what I bought it for.
Exactly. So we know that the market can go up a lot on the basis of just psychology, just because I want to buy it because someone else is going to buy it at a higher price. Greater fool theory. So whatever the reason, that's how markets work. And there are some things that have got good underlying fundamentals that will, during a correction, come back and people will jump in, and there'll be some things that have nothing. And when the market corrects, they disappear. And the real test, actually, the interesting test, was the bear market. So the way everything corrected last year into November during the SPF debacle, that was a really good test of quite a lot of major interest in this project. And lots of people were saying, 5,000, 2,000 or zero. And that's not what happened. And it's a sign of what we call accumulation, when the psychology is negative and the markets go sideways. And we will reach this point again, except on the inverse, maybe in maybe next year, but maybe in a few years, when everything's going up, everything looks amazing, and completely the opposite will happen, i.e. the market will be going sideways and not responding to the so-called bullish fundamentals, and that's when the correction will come. So markets kind of do the same thing over and over again, but with different stories behind them. And that's why I like to look at charts, because it makes it clear as to what the psychology is doing. So the fact that things are squeezed up very aggressively isn't a big surprise, because again, people are they're waiting for a pullback. There is definitely more interest now. They're definitely waiting for a pullback. It's hard for me to stand in front of the market at 42,000 and say that this is a top, but I mean, if we get a chart, I don't know if you want to see the charts, or whether you want me to go through everything first.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's add in the charts. We can take a look.
So this purple 42,000 line, that was just the 170% that I was looking at from the low. So I'm just going to get rid of that, so you can see this purple line up here. So when I was saying 42,000, that's what I was targeting. And this area here is a consolidation, which, with rising lows, look back at the previous, video that we did, and see how we were talking about this rising lows against resistance, that's usually a bullish sign. And it's hit this point, which was a sell trigger from all the way up here. So it could have a reaction. It's already had a little reaction. If we go into a daily chart, you can see that it's run into it and then stopped. Now, I wouldn't short something like this because the trend is up, and the rule says if the trend is up, you stay with the trend. But I'd also think, well, if I'm looking at this chart, where would I want to buy? Where would be the buy triggers? 28,547, we talked about that. Break into new high, we talked about that. Consolidation, we talked about that. This bigger consolidation, we talked about that. But it never gave people a chance, a decent pullback to get back in, which is why the squeeze has been so aggressive and why it points to a greater bull market to follow. So when there is a pullback, when there is a correction, maybe it will come on some fundamentals. I don't know. Usually there's a story behind it to make people want to get out, but that correction will be the one that I think if I was not long here, that's what I'd be waiting for. Now there is a chance it just keeps going straight up, maybe 45,479, that's the next big level. I'm not sure, but I would never stand in the way of a market. I'm just saying that this was a good target and it's hit it. So really, I should respect that. And maybe at the very least with Bitcoin, time for a pause. Now, ETH was the one that had to catch up. Remember this little triangle? And it's broken through the resistance. It's only just completed its base. And it's really got moved to 26 at least, or maybe 2781 on the card. So I'm kind of trying to square the circle with ETH going up and maybe Bitcoin consolidating. Could be that both just keep going up and neither give you a chance to get in. Well, as far as ETH goes, the chance is here, or has been here, because that was the consolidation. So I think the more it squeezes up, if it squeezes up, the further it gets away from this 2140, whatever that is in there, 2143 breakout point, the further it moves from there, the less the risk reward is from a trader's point of view. Because if you're buying it here, that's where you want to have your stop, or below 2031. So you're risking a bigger pullback the more you wait. And this is just me, not you. When I say you are, I mean I am. So so overall, this is looking like it's starting its journey a bit more than Bitcoin, which is, obviously leading the way higher. So at the very least, there may be some interest to rotate out of Bitcoin into other markets. This is the Bitcoin ETH chart. I'm just looking to see whether there's a bit of support here, but I suppose the spread can keep going. I mean, it doesn't have to change, but knowing how the market is, they will be looking for opportunities. And we should see Solana's come off over 3% while ETH is up. So again, we talked about that last week, and the potential for ETH to play a bit of a catch up against Solana was a possibility. But overall, I like to go with the strongest markets where possible, the ones that are leading the way. But this is fundamentally, in my view, a bull market, and therefore everything will get a chance to go up. And the fact that Bitcoin is leading the way is a good positive sign for everything, because things will rotate back into the other coins and the other projects. And if we get a nice little consolidation, maybe even a pullback between now and the end of the year, that will set us up very nicely if equities are breaking into new highs next year. And then people are once again looking for the next big market to invest some of their profits with, or to diversify their holdings. And in theory, crypto assets should be a non-correlated asset. So, and what we mean by that is the market stocks are correlated. They all kind of move up and they all kind of move down together. So if you're an asset manager and you're in stocks, well, if you buy a load of UK stocks and you buy a load of American stocks, they're probably going to move generally together. If everything goes up together, everything goes down together, maybe one will outperform the other, but one's not really much of a hedge against the other. But with Bitcoin and with cryptocurrencies, they represent a potential non-correlated asset, which means that when equities go down, they could potentially go up, and that will work. That can work. They can be on a different cycle. During a strong risk-on period, as I would call it, everything goes up until it's, we reach that maximum when everyone's too long and it's time to correct and everything goes down. So everything will go up and then everything will go down. But it's an interesting market that can be used for hedging. So that's why I think, regardless of where it's going, there will be, the longer it survives and continues and thrives, the more companies, traders, investors will look at it as a non-correlated asset that they can add to their portfolio. So I think there'll just be a lot more trading.
What are you seeing on the dollar index this past week, the DXY?
Yeah, a bit of profit taking on the shorts. So we're seeing a bounce here. So this ties into what I was saying about the meeting coming up next week. And look, it's been a very nice, smooth move down. We had a bit of a bounce here on the way up. So I think that's repeating. So we might get back to, say, 104 just over, and then it turns down again. So a little correction is fine, is to be expected. But that trend for me should stay negative. We've got the 200-day moving average, which is here. It's just gone over it. So there's some evidence of either profit taking on shorts. What set the move off, the sharp first move, was fairly fundamental sea change in view. So a bit of profit taking on short dollar positions is to be expected. It'd be nice if it just kept going down in a straight line, but markets don't do that. They do correct, and it looks like that's what's happening here. And if we look at the VIX index, that hit a low, and then it's starting to rally a little bit. So that implies a little bit of a correction. If we look at the Dow Jones, I mean, look at that straight line move. I mean, it's quite incredible. Is it? Yeah, it's not far off its all-time high. See how close it is? So a bit of a wobble, a bit of a correction ahead of it, some nerves just before it takes that high out would be expected. It'd actually be nice if we have a consolidation here, because I don't particularly want it to run straight into new highs, because then it would feel like it's getting overbought. It needs to have a consolidation. So I think maybe a consolidation in equities, slight push up in the dollar, just as a counter trend move before it continues on its way again. Let's have a quick look at the NASDAQ. See the NASDAQ, yeah, that's coming off as well. That's just returning back down. But compared to where it was and all the negative, views on it, all the doom and gloom that was around this 26, if you remember, there was a lot of people talking about a crash. There's a lot of people talking about World War III, and it all seems to have dissipated, and markets moved into a new high. So this is positive. I think a little bit of a pullback would be a really nice setup for it to then bounce and go through the high into next year. So it feels a bit corrective. I don't know whether it's going to be all of this week or into next week. But it just feels like we're getting a correction across the board, and it will just set up the next move, broadly speaking, in the markets. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that altcoins will do the same, because profit taking from Bitcoin could move into altcoins and push them higher. And again, there's that element of there being a non-correlated move where Bitcoin moved, they didn't move, then suddenly they moved, etc. So it's kind of push me, pull you environment for those. But in terms of the majors, I think it feels to me like a correction is at hand.
Yeah, makes sense, right? Especially as everyone's feeling super bullish, then it just kind of disappoint them. And it's how the market so often works.
Yeah. I mean, it's a guess more than anything else. It's just a feeling about, 42 was what we wanted. That's been hit so fast. There's been a lot more people talking about it as well. So the chatter, comes around again. And, I've not seen some crazy forecasts yet, but it wouldn't surprise me because I don't look at other channels really, but I don't know whether you've heard some crazy forecasts coming out all of a sudden, or whether it doesn't feel like things have got crazy yet.
There's a few people forecasting that Bitcoin's going to go down to 12 or 16,000.
Really?
Well,
okay.
When we bottomed out at 3,800 in the bear market of 2020, people were saying Bitcoin was going to go to 800. So it's like, yes, I can't see 12 or 16,000 short of like nuclear warfare, EMP warfare, something crazy going on. Then who knows?
Well, I think if that were to happen, I don't think it would go down. I think it would go up because your ability to get cash, to use the banking network would be possibly a lot harder. So I don't even see that as a scenario. But yeah. So I can see a comment from Justin. The Simpsons are predicting nuclear warfare in 2024. Well, they also predicted, didn't they? Someone was telling me that Bitcoin would go to infinity. So who knows?
Yeah. They also predicted Donald Trump would be president, and there was no way at the time that would ever be possible that Donald Trump would be the U.S. president.
Yeah.
So they've been way more accurate than Jim Cramer, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think nuclear war is really an option for anybody.
I sure hope it's not.
No, I think if there's going to be, it's going to be warfare of a type of, hacking, that sort of thing, and interfering with, power and networks and stuff like that. I just don't see in this day and age how it's advantaged for anybody to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, you never say never, but if it is, that's it. Basically, who would care about where anything is if there's a nuclear war? That'd be the end. So
yeah, well,
and I don't think that's
matter what Bitcoin's price is because we'll just be worried about food supply and survival.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Let's jump into some of the altcoins, and we have a number of suggestions. And the first one on the list today was Render. Let's take a look at Render.
Yeah. Again, this one popped up from when I think we talked about it on Wednesday, was it? Let's have a look. Where's it gone? Where is it? It's back here somewhere. Yeah. So Render has been, I've been bullish on Render. I'm still bullish on Render. Had a little consolidation here, and the trend is still up. Maybe due for a correction, but it looks like we're heading to this high, doesn't it? It's got into clear space. This area here, this double top, you see 1, 2, and then it went down, and then it came up and retested it. Where it is right now, there's a lot of resistance. So a consolidation here, a bit of a pullback, would not surprise me. But in terms of the overall trend, this is leading the way up, and the trend is still bullish. So for me, it's still a buy, and I'm still, positive on it. So yeah, that's it. There's not a lot to change there really, other than I suppose excuse me. I always like to have some form of a stop, which gets me out if I'm, if I'm wrong, and that would be this upward trend line, which has worked so nicely. So that will go up as the market goes up. But you can see the rate that it's going up is much faster than that. So that allows for a bit of a correction. So for me, that would give a bit of space for it to correct and then go up again. But at the same time, limit the potential loss or lock in profits if it does decide to have an even deeper correction beyond the, the normal pullback that might happen. So that for me would be the area I'd like to use as a stop loss. But overall, still the same. It's looking positive, led the way up. I know it's probably one of the bigger cap ones that doesn't necessarily float your boat and you may look somewhere else. But for me, just on the technicals, it's still looking positive.
Yeah, and to me, it just comes down to other options because I like this one. And if I didn't have options of riskier, lower market cap ones that could outperform it, well, then I would have to go with Render. Overall, the chart looks bullish. It did this nice double bottom. It's then coming up to some resistance levels, but overall, it's still a buy, and it will probably vastly exceed its previous highs. And so, like over a 4-year period, do you realize in stocks, if your stock doubles in a 4-year period, you are through the moon excited. And in crypto, it just seems so boring relatively. I can imagine that Render could go to a market cap of, say, 20 billion, maybe even more. And it's currently at 1.3 billion. Maybe it even goes as high as 30 billion. So what would that be? That would be like a 20 something X from here, which is pretty incredible that we have options that good as well as other options. Render is leading the way in this idea of, like, one of the things blockchain really can solve is this ability to allow people to put their GPU to use by others in order for them to access the processing power. So no longer will big companies necessarily need to buy access or time to a supercomputer. They could just use like the render network to maybe use 1,000 computers to render some big file, and they'd end up saving a lot of money and time because a lot of these supercomputers, they have access to high-speed internet, or a lot of these gaming computers that have really strong GPUs. And so people could benefit putting their computer to work passively when they're not using it. And so it's a really good idea. And Render's market cap is higher than a lot of what I like, though Render is the leader in this space. One of the ones I am in is a lot riskier project, but it's also been doing very well, and it broke up above. So it shot up earlier this year from, 0.6 cents all the way to about 8 cents. So it did about a 13x. And then it retraced and reset down to 4.2 cents. And now it's been off a tear. It came up and struggled at this point, and then it just punched through right now. So Iagon going on a run. Market cap's at 35 million. I was buying this when it was much, much cheaper. And so, yeah, it's performing quite well. And I think it's going to continue a little run that's going to be nice. It might be good for a short swing trade. I don't know how long the run will last, but probably up from here as it breaks through this and do quite well with a much smaller market cap. So it's like 1/30th or 1/40th the size of Render's market cap. And that is, you can find it easiest on the Cardano swaps. MinSwap is one of the Cardano swaps I like the most, and it's also on gate.io. But Render, going back to the one that was suggested, I'm going to have to give it a buy too, even though I personally am not buying it. I like where the chart is. If I were buying blue chips and I didn't have Render, I'd go ahead and just pick some up for a longer run, because even if it 20x's from here, that's pretty dang good for a blue chip. Just a lot of the stuff I'm buying, I hope, does a 50 to 100 or 200x. All right. Let's take a look next at, we got
Myria. Yeah, Myria.
So we've been following this one pretty closely as its price action has been pretty exciting. And we followed it since the price action was very boring, which is when I was saying it was a massive buy. And now it's not so boring.
Yeah, again, I think this is one that we looked at on Wednesday. And the overall chart here is one of, I would like a bit more data. So I have a feeling that this might go back a bit further, or maybe it changed its.
No, it did launch not all that long ago.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
that is the beginning of it.
Okay. It feels like one that
maybe no, that isn't quite the beginning. It does go back further. It depends on what exchange it's pulling data from. I think KuCoin has its full history.
Yeah, I don't know if it's it's not listed as an index on here.
On TradingView, it does show it that way. If you from TradingView and you pull up Yeah,
Yeah,
that's usually how I get right there. KuCoin, and it'll have a little bit more history. See there, it has
yeah,
more history.
yeah. It's got a little bit more. Still, I suppose it could always have a bit more, but I can't fault it for when it started. So it's just done this 100% retracement, hasn't it? Of the low turnaround. This turnaround here was very interesting and comes again back down to the point of where you decide to go bullish or bearish. And technicals is about trying to find those points at the right time or ones that make sense. And the breakout was here at 0.0022, and then we got this strong move, and then a continuation pattern, which is consolidation during a bull market. And what normally happens is you get a straight move and then a straight move. So and they kind of mirror each other as well. So we've mirrored it, and I think we've gone far enough. Is the kind of headline for me. And if we look at, I'm going to use this just because I could just see it a bit better. This spike, it's not a massive spike. This still could be a consolidation, but it just feels like this is ready to pull back a bit. And so I would be waiting here. I want to wait to see a bit more. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't be jumping in here. I'd be waiting for a pullback as well, because I don't mind buying things that are on the run. It's just that if there is a correction elsewhere, this could also correct too. And it's had some decent activity. So nothing goes up in a complete straight line. So a consolidation is to be expected. So I'm just going to wait and see how it plays out. I'd like this to get a little bit cheaper before jumping in. But overall, the trend is still bullish. So there's no need for if I bought lower down, I would just leave it because I think pull back and then it goes back up again. I wouldn't try to be clever and pick the top or do anything like that. But if going from zero and having no position here, I would definitely be waiting because, I think it's run far enough, fast enough. I want to see a pullback, but I do think the way it's gone up, it will have more to go. So I'll be quite happy to jump in. And jumping in for me, I don't mind jumping in at a higher price than where it is now because that confirms the trend is moving. I know it can be difficult to do that, but that's what markets are. That's how they are. So for me, I'm just looking at that bar there, and what a spike is. It's the kind of end, potentially the end. And I don't know this for sure, but it's potentially the end of a run where you get a lot of activity buying, kind of FOMOing, and as to use your language there. So FOMOing in to something, and then reality sets in, and it's just got a little bit of ahead of itself and needs a correction. So it pulls back and then it goes back up again. If that was a massive spike, it would be worrying about it being a major top, but I don't think it's a major top at this point. I just think it could be a minor top for a pullback before it goes up again. So for me, it's a wait.
So you think possibly a pullback to like the 0.7 cent range?
Yeah.
Maybe in just kind of slowing down their trajectory because the trajectory got so sharp.
Yeah, I want to see what it was. Really, it's more of an observing the price action from here, and it feels like it wants to correct, but I don't feel confident in jumping in here. And if it comes back to 0.7, that's about halfway. That would be a nice point for it to come back to before it starts to go up again. It is possible that it doesn't at all. It just sits here, goes sideways, and starts to rise up again. And then if I was just trading that, I'd be forced to jump in again. So that's why I want to observe it for a bit. It's but it's not a point where I would, at this point in time, it's not a point where I would just say, yeah, I'm just going to get in. Because even though I am, bullish on everything for the long term, I still want to time it a little bit better. And there may be some clearer opportunities elsewhere. So that's the trend line. So if it comes back to that, even that's an accelerated trend line. You see how it's been going up.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels it would be kind of satisfactory for it to have a nice pullback here, consolidate, and then go for another move up. But it's more I'd like to wait and see. I don't feel like jumping in here. Whereas on this one, it felt more like a triangular constriction ready to break out. And from a base, you know, I like bases because that's usually the start of something. But here it's just a little stretched, so pullback would be what I'd like to see.
Yeah, great point. All right. Can you guys do TA on Grand Theft Auto 6? I don't know how to do that. What's the price action on Grand Theft Auto 6?
Do you have to play it to do that? I don't know.
That would be fun. I don't know if it's out yet. I played Grand Theft Auto 5. It was an amazing game. I enjoyed creating a business in it. I can't wait till this type of game is on the blockchain. The amount of money, like one of the projects I advise, Litcraft on their game, they recently did these commercials, and literally the most brilliant commercials I've seen since Where's the Beef. It's so good. So this guy's in a supercar, and I don't know if it was a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, and he's got his girlfriend or something sitting next to him. And this guy walks up with a camera. He's like, "Hey, sir, what do you do for a living?" And he's like, "Oh, I do some digital assets." And she's like, "He plays video games." and so the guy's like, yeah, well, yeah, it's a game where I own some assets in the game and I move them around and I manage some stuff." And she's like, literally, he plays it all day long. And there's what I love about it is there's some truth to that, because in the future with these owning assets in games, like I even know with some of the MMORPGs like EVE Online, which isn't near as big as World of Warcraft, but it's one of the bigger MMORPGs out there. There's a black market for selling your stuff. And one of the guys I knew that was higher up in the corporation said that the leaders of the corporations sell these assets on the black market and literally make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Wow. When that stuff is like fully tradable and you don't have to sell it on the black market and you don't risk getting your account shut down, there will be people leading corporations or playing video games, literally making millions of dollars a year. And that's not that far away. And so what I like about that commercial is it's true. It's going to be that way. GTA is not released. Trailer will be announced this month. So that's playing awesome.
Well, it's certainly the case that there's so much money in games, more so than films. So, you know, Hollywood's a big business, but gaming is even bigger. So if it's a question of, do you think it's going to be successful? There's so much money riding on it. It's a bit like the next James Bond. It has to be successful. It just has to work because there's just so much money. They've worked out in the film world that you can't have, like in the old days, it used to be that you'd have a really great film and then the next film would just be a cash in. So they just make something because they've spent all the money on the advertising. They just put something out quickly, you know, bang it out while it's hot. And the following film would always be really bad, apart from The Godfather Part 2, which is arguably better than the first film and a classic, as you may or may not know. And if you don't know, you should know because it's a brilliant film. But you know, nowadays, I think if you look at the way they treat films, they realize that there's so much invested, apart from the Marvel universe, which we're not going to get onto because I seem to rant about that every week. But they seem to have worked out that they've invested so much money in these franchises that they will not mess it up. They can't mess it up because there's just too much riding on it. So it's kind of changed. The psychology's changed a little bit, where it used to be a cash grab to get your next film out. In the world of, you know, media, they don't do that. They try to treat it with more respect, and they treat films like a series in the same. So everything's gone into episodes. So, you know, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and whatever, Ozark, whatever it might be, that's how films have become. So they treat everything like episodes where you have to keep watching and you have to keep playing. So so I think that it behooves them to use the technology to make everything as good as they can, unless they're not managing their legacy very well, in which case, you know, that's a shame. So each one has got to be better. Yeah, Goodfellas is a good one, Justin. Yeah, definitely love Goodfellas.
S3YU says, I made 50,000 in the last 3 years. See, this is exactly my point. With playing World of Warcraft and selling the in-game currency gold to other players. And you kind of have to sell it on the black market, because if the game finds out, they will shut down your account and you lose all that value. And it takes forever to build up a character that can earn that kind of gold pretty fast to make that kind of money. And so that's the risk people are taking. In the future, that will be embraced. And I think because of that, it's going to bring businessmen and businesses into gaming, and the amount of money that's going to be there will dwarf what's been there. And that's why blockchain gaming, I'm so heavily invested in my portfolio in blockchain gaming, because I think it's going that way. Now, are a lot of these blockchain gaming projects a good price to buy at right now? A lot of them just ran up 6 to 12x. And so it's not as juicy as when it was at bottoms and I was banging the drums of, man, these are value priced. I really like the price. So I have a harder time covering blockchain gaming as much when it's up like this, because often a pullback will then happen, leading to a little bit juicier prices. Overall, extremely bullish on that space. And I think the highs that it gets to this bull run are a lot higher than where things are now.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point. If necessity is the mother of invention, and given that people are doing that, given that, you know, this guy's made that much money, they will see that as an opportunity for them to do it in a way that they can take their share. So, you know, it's got to be the next big thing, among other things. But yeah, absolutely.
Delta Plane brings up a good point. There is a game that's getting closer to release called Mirandus, and it's built by Gala. I'm not invested in Gala. I'm just concerned with some of the decisions that they're making, but I would love for me to be wrong on Gala and them for Mirandus to be very successful. One of the concerning things that Mirandus did is, an investor, I'm always worried about like the game maker kind of screwing you. And they did a decision that maybe they were just inartful how they did it, but they sold stables to investors. And I think people were paying like $1,000 for this stable, and a whole bunch of them sold, right? I don't know if it was like 500, but imagine, or even like 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000. So they would have raised $500,000 to millions of dollars on these stables. And the reason for buying a stable is you can then make horses there, right? But then later, without having told the people who were buying the stables in advance, they later did a horse sale. So all the people with the stables are like, wait, what? I thought we were going to have an exclusive on horses, and now you're selling horses. So it caught a lot of the people who had spent a lot of money on the stables off guard. And yeah, I don't like it when they make that kind of decision where it doesn't seem like they respect the people who had invested before and kind of change the rules of the game. Now, maybe that was always their intention and they didn't express it clearly enough. And that is kind of a big deal too, that you just, hey, you know, if you would have just told everyone that that was going to happen, maybe they still would have been fine with buying the stables, but at least they would have acted on all the information. So when I see a decision like that by games, I do get concerned. Justin says VV is the new Gala. A lot of people have been, you know, bummed on VV because they feel like it's taking longer than they want. And probably what they're really bummed about is the token behind it hasn't yet pumped. And I feel like if the token behind it had already gone 10x, then all the concerns on VV would go away, because they're actually doing a pretty good job, in my opinion. But emotionally, it weighs on you when their token has not pumped in so long. All right. Let's take a look at our next one, which is PZP. We haven't covered that one a lot in a while, but that is another blockchain gaming project. Let's take a look at its chart.
Again, with the caveat of not a lot of data. I mean, what we're seeing is start in May this year, hit a low, and then this takeoff, sharp takeoff, pull back, and then here we are in this consolidation. So there's no reference point other than we're moving into new highs. So there's not much I can talk about in terms of levels and pullback points, etc., etc. I would say that for me, it's a wait here. And the reason why it's a wait is I need to see whether this is going to turn into a double top, which would be triggered through 36 cents or just below that, this level here, or if it can hold in, this will become more of a consolidation, as if it oscillates into this central point at 45 cents and then starts to take out 57, 58. That would suggest we're going to get another move up. I'm normally with or biased towards the trend moving higher, given that that's the direction. The trend is up, so I want to go with it as much as possible. I just want to wait a little bit longer, because even if today, if it just comes back to say 37, 36, that will change the outlook of the chart a lot more. If this is the low right here at 39 and it can hold this here into tomorrow, it's literally this one day makes a big difference to me, to how I read the chart. So I'm going to pause and say I'd like to wait. I think overall, though, the trend has been good. And if there is a pullback, I'd be very interested in around 29 cents. That was the beginning of the acceleration, so there should be some good support there. So overall, I'm bullish. It's just in the very short term, I think I'd like to wait just to see how this little consolidation plays out.
All right. So for Paul, it's a wait. For me, it's a wait too. From a standpoint, I think blockchain gaming, the narrative is going to continue for a little bit longer. And so we had some people bring it up on our channel at this price. Now, I like a lot of substance, and PlayZap it's not like it doesn't have substance. They're producing a lot of mini games along the lines of what people are used to playing. And so it is very speculative that this narrative will do well, and it might. Depends on how well they bring it together and bring over the people that are already playing these type of games and bringing them into their ecosystem. So certain things within the blockchain gaming, even if the narrative is pretty speculative, as blockchain gaming came into the narrative, it pumped tremendously, and PlayZap did incredibly well. So back when we covered it back here, I was like, okay, I don't see the substance that I like, but if blockchain gaming comes in the narrative, it will probably pump too. That is what happened. In fact, because it was such a low market cap before, it ran up tremendously. So from essentially about 6 cents, it ran all the way up almost 10x. And then it's just retraced a little bit. And if we got the absolute bottom at 4 cents, it's gone 13x. So really good multiples on that. I do like the lower trend line that it's at right now. It's on the lower end of that trend line. I imagine it's going to have another run up. But if I were trading this, I would be buying on this lower trend line, and I would be putting a stop at about 30, just below 35 cents, and hoping it breaks to the upside and does another leg up on PlayZap. So actually, its current price, it would be for me a buy right at here, and then with a stop loss in, and just trying to take another leg up on this. Like long term, I think this narrative does well. There's a project that I'm really close to, and maybe that biases me a little bit. So that would be Litcraft and Experience, and it has a lot of these same type of games built into the ecosystem. But the rewards for playing these games go well in the overall metaverse of what Litcraft is developing. And so as you play these games within that ecosystem, it gives you rewards that are then sellable to players that are trying to build things in the bigger metaverse of Litcraft. And so I really like that narrative. Now, Litcraft hasn't launched a token. They will be launching their token called Fias soon. So one of the reasons people aren't paying that much attention to it is because it doesn't have anything investable or a token that's investable yet. But their idea behind that is quite good, and their commercials are quite good. They're about to launch on mobile. So when their game launches on mobile, they've got some of their commercials geared up, and they did an update that they released, I think, on their Twitter and Telegram, where you could watch their update on where things are at. And that's where I saw the commercials that that are coming out. And once they're ready to go on mobile, they're going to start advertising to pick up more players and attract players to the ecosystem and regular gamers. So they're ready to go in a couple months and really push some marketing and other things. And that's why I'm watching that one. I do think this kind of narrative, it's all about bringing over the players that are playing these types of games and giving them more or better rewards than what they're getting now. And so PlayZap is going after those same people too, because there's money in that. And whoever is successful, or maybe multiple companies are successful, it's a narrative that I think can do pretty well. All right. So it is a buy for me, just short term like that. Let's take a look now at GFAL.
Yeah, GFAL is pretty much a one-way street at the moment, isn't it? And what's interesting about this is we haven't seen, just double checking this is up to date, which it is, we haven't seen that kind of spiky price action that implies a bit of profit takings coming in. So compared to the other markets, this is a smoother move. So I see no reason to go against it. Doesn't guarantee it's going to go up. This is a probability thing. But for me, it was still a buy. So I would stay with this trend, draw a trend line underneath, and that would be all you can do, really. Again, extra caution because the amount of data that we've got here. But I think that's generally understood. Yeah, so trend is up. I would go with it. If it does pull back, there's some good support around 4 cents, maybe a bit below that. But yeah, very, very smooth upward trend.
Yeah, I'm really bullish on this game long term. They have the founder of, what is it, EA Sports, I think, behind this. It's hard to get a better person involved in your company than that. Like, so I don't have any of this. I don't like that I don't have any of this, but I also, there was a lot of things out there. So I wasn't even aware of it till somewhere in here. And there were a lot of things that were still really cheap compared to it, and it gone up already like 4x. So I just don't chase green candles, especially when there's other opportunities that I'm very familiar with that have pulled back tremendously. And one of the downsides of not chasing into green candles is sometimes the green candles continue. And so would I like to have this one? Yes. Have I missed this boat? Yes. I don't jump off the dock and chase boats that I haven't missed, unless I'm just short-term swing trading it with some available cash that I have. But I'm still trying to make thoughtful placements in things that haven't run yet. And so I'm not going to swing trade this, though I like it very, very much. And one of our Discord community members, Ryan, brought this to my attention, looked at it. He's like, I think this one's solid. Am I missing something? And I told him I was just unaware of it. As I looked at it, I thought this is exactly the type of projects I look for. And it's too bad I didn't see it earlier, because it's the kind of solid fundamental project that I look for. And had I seen it sooner, I absolutely would have loaded the boats on it. And so now chasing, it's up, 7x from its lows here. I'm just not going to chase into that. Cool. There are lots of opportunities out there. And so I used to, my first run, absolutely would I have chased into this? Absolutely I would have. And I probably would have sold something that was at lows, and then just in time to watch what I had sold at lows finally take off and outperform. So now I'm just patient. I wait to load the boats for something that I feel like it showed up at the port, is at a really good price, and I load up. Cool. But fantastic project. I think this one's going to be one of the bigger winners. They almost could not have a better team than what they have. So fantastic suggestion by one of our viewers too. So for me, it's just a wait. Let's take a look at Spores, which has had some interesting price action the last couple of days. I think it's actually one of my community members that in the Discord he was sharing with us that he was buying massively. By how massively, I don't know, but he said he caused those candles in it.
Right. Okay. So for me, this is very interesting because this seems to trade nicely from a technical point of view. We got a bit more data. We can see how it's run down in the bear market. Had a little reversal there, which has come all the way back to this point again. So taking a step back, if we go into a weekly chart, you can see how we've made this 1, 2. So this is a base. This is a potential base. Now, it could do with a bit of a consolidation just because of where we are. We're at crucial resistance. And if we look at how many weeks it's been going up in a row, it's if we count that first one, you might not be able to see it. Can't see it there. It's very, very small. But if we count that as the first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, it's been printing higher lows on a weekly basis. It makes you wonder whether buying it here is a good idea. But that's again what what bases are all about. The market has gone into forming this base, so the consolidation would be nice, but overall, that is the buy trigger. The break of that is the buy trigger. So for me, this is a buy. Now, I fully expect there to be some form of consolidation, maybe even a pullback. But what I like about this is when you get a base, it implies that the new trend will recover some of at least proportion of this downward trend here. Now, it's not guaranteed, it's not 100%, but that's the probability. So the fact that it's managed to recover all the way back to this resistance point is a very good sign. So for me, it's a buy, and pull back a little consolidation here, I wouldn't be too worried about. If it gets back below this 1.1 cent level here, which is where the acceleration started, then I might feel a bit uncomfortable. Remember, it did all of that in just a few days. So for it to be a good move, we want it to stick fairly high up here and then push through again. If you look at the way ETH did that, the way it consolidated for a bit and then it broke out, that's the sort of thing I'd like to see in terms of it staying near the high of the range. So overall, still a buy, or it is a buy for me. I can't remember when we last looked at it. We did look at it quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was clearly the big panic. The fact that panic happened at a higher level than the previous low was a very good sign. So it means anyone who wanted to bail out, that was the watershed moment. It's hit its low and now it's turning around. So it feels to me, or looks technically, like perhaps people aren't on board and there could be much more upside. So for me, it's a buy.
Yeah. Let's see. I like this one a lot. So I'll compare this one to one of its competitors. So Spores Network is a launchpad. Now, the launchpads have seen a little bit of price action, especially the gaming launchpads. So we actually saw Paid Network really shoot up the last few days. And Paid Network not only launches some gaming projects, but it launches other things. And so their tokens been taking off from its lows at 1.2 cents all the way to 8.4 cents just in the last 30 something days. Spores is one of my favorites. It's undervalued. They do have connections to get great projects to launch through them. And their market cap is just so low. So Paid Network's market cap is almost 7 million. Spores is way cheaper than that at 1.8 million. And it's down 99% from its high. So it was previously at it doesn't show it here, but it was at 17 cents. So it's down 99% from its highs. If it goes up back to where it was at, that's 100x from here. Now, 100x from here would take this to a market cap of 180 million. Which SIDUS is well on its way already to 180 million. It's 136 million. So something like SIDUS could hit $1 billion plus market cap, maybe even several billion in a bigger bull run. Spores usually will end up with, if Spores does pretty well, it'll end up with bigger multiples and, go to maybe 500 million or something. Maybe if it hits 1 billion, that would be crazy, but it is possible, especially because they have some of the best connections in Asia for games that are launching. Remember, the Asian market spends more per capita than even the US does on video games. And Asian countries are embracing blockchain faster than the US is. So they might be well positioned versus a lot of their competitors to really capitalize on that. As Vietnam, South Korea, China, and Japan start launching more games, they have, I feel like they have the right connections for that. So Spores Network, I think, even though it just recently ran up, it is still a buy for me. Now, I'm loaded up on this. I loaded the boats. In fact, way back here, one of my Discord members wrote me, he's a gold level Discord, and he's like, hey, what are some of your top picks? And it was like the 4th of December or something. And I said, Spores, Bumper, and a few other ones. And then later I shared those sentiments with the broader Discord. And then much later shared it on YouTube. But all those ones have pumped tremendously from their lows back in December. I mean, it was so absolutely dirt cheap. I think the market cap was in the 100,000 range or something. And so incredible gains since then. Absolutely amazing gains. And I think there's a lot farther to go because it's still at a micro cap at 1.8 million. Cool. That's exciting to me. So fantastic suggestion by one of our viewers. Let's take a look. Well, we looked at paid actually. Let's look at that again individually. If you want to pull it up on your chart.
Yeah, I've got it here. Yeah, so the thing with paid is it has run, but this was all a basing period. So we got the first sign that it was coming out of the doldrums here. So that was the first impulsive move with a really nice little consolidation. That's what I look for. I really love these little triangular constrictions, and it's broken out. So where it is now, it feels like missed the boat a little bit. Risk reward is not so great, but there isn't much resistance until, you know, I was going to say maybe just wait because there's not much resistance, or the resistance is close at 19 cents, but that's still quite a long way in a percentage term. So perhaps it is worth buying on going with this, given that if it does run into a stopping point here, which looks pretty heavy to me, look at where it stopped there, and then it stopped there, and then broke it. So there's going to be some interest to sell, I would have thought, from a probabilistic point of view at 19. So I'm looking at it at 0.08, thinking the upside on this move before it runs into some selling is from 8 to 19. Is that enough? Well, actually it is. I mean, it depends on your perspective really, but on any other normal market it would be. And overall the trend is up anyway, so it could do with a pullback. We're seeing some form of pullback here, but the trend is still up. So I'm gonna put my bullish hat on and just say, yeah, it's a buy. But I would fully expect a bit more of a retracement. It wouldn't surprise me if it comes back to this 0.055 area where the breakout happened. I wouldn't want to see it there, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was there. Now, if it breaks that and starts hanging around a bit lower, then that for me is a sign to say maybe something else is worth looking at. That would be in the context of what is everything else doing. If everything else is moving up and this isn't moving with it, you know, that intermarket analysis for me is a bit of a deal breaker. There's a like to go with the ones that are leading the way up, but that's a few steps down the line. We'd have to come back to it again, but thanks for suggesting it. I think it looks good.
Yeah, great suggestion by one of the viewers. I had kind of forgotten about paid. I used them in the last bull market, and one of our comments here, Free Agent Lifestyle said, I kept printing money from Binance Launchpad's last bull run. It literally was like printing money. So I had enough paid to get a pretty decent allocation and pretty decent chances of getting in on some of their launches. And some of their launches, if I was able to get a $400 allocation, sometimes it went to like $12,000 when I just put $4,000 in. like overnight, and that's why these launch pads can be a big deal. And what I like about Paid Network is it was a well-run launch pad, pretty smooth, less hiccups than a lot of the launch pads. Kyle Chasse leads Paid, and he's well connected in the VC space. He's an OG in crypto. He's been in crypto since like 2012 or 2013, something very early, and has a lot of connections to get some good launches going through with him. He also ends up being an advisor to many of them. So good connections. I just literally forgot about them during all this boring price action. And that's the part of being human. There are literally hundreds and thousands of decent projects out there, and trying to keep your eyes on all of them all the time. So for now, it's just a wait for me, because sometimes, like Paul said, like it will pull back from here. And it's not a bad deal at $7 million market cap. I'm just hoping for a little bit better deal. There are some really good deals that haven't taken off. Did a live stream on that last night. There is the course down below. This is, let me get you the exact name of it. It's top picks for high gains, low risk course. Yes, I charge for that. I have lost money on this course because really nobody is talking about these projects. The floor is really, really soft. And because I keep dollar cost averaging into the two projects I'm talking about here, literally I pump the floor on myself. So there is a charge to it. I don't mind pumping the floor on myself because I love the idea of you guys picking up some of this stuff, because the floor is still really cheap. It just was so absurdly cheap. I just couldn't believe it ever happened. It's only because nobody is talking about these projects, but it's top intellectual property. I can't see a reason why these don't do phenomenally well in the coming bull run, but it's out of narrative right now. Nobody's talking about them, and that's what that course is about. So that's where a lot of my money is going. So rather than chasing a boat that's already left the port, I've been stocking up on these because they haven't left the port, and that's where a lot of my money is. As I get more cash, I put it into that, and more cash, I put it into that. And I'm still really happy with the floors on these two projects. In the Discord, we talk about them a lot. And there are some people on our Discord that know within these projects what are the better things to buy. We've had some fantastic discussions on that. So load up the boats that are still at port rather than the ones that have run. Though I love Paid Network. Gosh, it was well at port, run down here, and I just was out of my mind. And of course, Kyle Chasse isn't going anywhere. He isn't going to like fall away from the space. Had I been thinking about Paid, I absolutely would have loaded up on it, and it just didn't even come to mind. Cool. So it's just a wait for me at this point, but love this project. All right, Flare is our last one from the suggestions that came in before we kicked off.
So Flare is interesting technically, but I think more for a wait. So it's had a good run up. The volume is high. You can see how it's really spiked on this latest move. But where it is it's come back to this resistance here. So there's a severe bear market. It consolidated here, which it's come all the way back to. So it looks like it's trying to make an inverse head and shoulders. So I'd like to see it pull back into this 30, it's not 13 cents, it's 1.3 cents level back to here, and then go back up again. And that would form a really nice base. Now, it may not do that. It may just go straight through this resistance point, which for me would be an automatic kind of buy, because it's got through this this key resistance here, and then there's minor resistance at 0.18, and then really not a lot. So, it could be quite an interesting project. But whilst we are below that resistance, I would need to wait just to see how this plays out. Is it going to pull back? If it pulls back and then starts to go up again, that would be really nice, and I'd be interested in getting in it as it's swinging back up. And I'd be willing to wait, just because if it is correct and it is going to go up, it will go up a long way. It won't just go up a bit. So just the way I see it from a technical point of view. And there's also really good support around here. So that comes in around 1.2 cents. So that would be my stop loss point. If it got below there, I'd exit, look for something else. there's a chance that if it does get back there, it bounces back up and then goes up again, which, markets do sometimes, but there's nothing you can do about that. For me, I err on the side of caution of getting out and then having a chance to get into something else rather than, say, buying it here and then holding it all the way down and it holding capital, unless it's a really insignificant amount, in which case it's, that's not so much of a problem. So, and all in all, in summary, I'm waiting just to see whether this pulls back a little bit more so it can form a much bigger base, which would then send this off in a much larger potential upward trend. If it doesn't pull back and just goes straight up, then I would just be, going with that, because that's the nature of the way technicals works for me. I would like to see this again in a week or two, or maybe 3. So if we don't look at it and it was your suggestion, then please feel free to remind us, because obviously we get sort of caught up with so many different markets, you can sometimes forget. But definitely, it's not one that's already run too far.
Mm-hmm.
We're chasing it. It's still potentially in the basing area, which is why I like it. It's why this is the time to be looking at it. So, thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah, this is definitely closer to the blue chip category, but it's not in there. It's a $410 million market cap, essentially. It is tradable now on Coinbase, which is a big deal. Gives the U.S. access to it. It's also on KuCoin and Kraken. So it's on some pretty big exchanges. You can now get it. It is a layer 1. I can't say I know it super well, but essentially an EVM, Ethereum virtual machine based layer 1 blockchain with 2 native data acquisition protocols. So Flare time series Oracle, a state connector. What makes it special? I don't know enough about it to know what makes it special. But for a layer 1 blockchain, the market cap is fairly low. So if it's got really good things that make it special, then it's got fantastic potential. We've seen layer 1s that start getting a lot of adoption can go in the market caps of tens of billions of dollars. Now, does it have enough to make it special? That's where your research would come in. When I'm researching something like this, the first thing I do is I go to their website, which kind of showed you a little bit. Then I go to Twitter and I start to check out their Twitter. I like to see how many followers they have, though I think on Twitter you can buy followers. I don't know how well that's vetted, but you can see 263,000 followers. That's actually pretty good for something of the market cap of the size that it's at. I'd like to get a feel for what kind of marketing they put out, how they message. A lot of times in their Twitter, they'll be posting things that really kind of they try to explain what is it that does make them special. So this is where I start researching. And then I go to YouTube and I look on YouTube and I look for videos about what makes them special and try to figure out, are they special? Is there something that makes them special? And sometimes you'll get pretty lame analysis on YouTube. So you got to sort through the videos. You'll get, yeah, I think their price is this and it can go to this, but they don't really have a good justification on why it might go to that. It's just kind of like they don't really know what they're talking about or doing. But they did create a video on it. So I'm trying to look for reasoned analysis on why it might do well, like somebody who seems to know the project really well and has followed it, that gives a reasonable analysis that can make sense to me and add up as to why it might hit the price targets that they're talking about. And so the research usually involves watching 10 or 20 or 30 videos over a process of a few days if I'm fully trying to vet a project. And Flare is not a bad one to fully vet, because if it's got potential as a layer 1, even though that market cap is 400 million, something like this can go to market cap of 400 billion if Flare is something special. I just don't know if it's something special, but it is on Coinbase already. So that is a hint that there may be something good about it. Cool. All right. That was a lot of that. Let's jump into the comments. I saw a few suggestions come in, and we might be able to look at a few suggestions. Some TA on GTA 6. That just cracks me up. I really still thinking about this comment from Tosh, S3YU. I made 50,000 the last 3 years of playing World of Warcraft. Like, this is what's going to make blockchain gaming, because they've had the ability to make money on video games as they've done these massive multiplayer online role-playing games since about 2003. So 20 years now, except you really had to do it kind of underground, black market, hope that the game maker doesn't find out, because then they would shut down your accounts and sanction you. And so now it's going towards an area where it's completely embraced. And that brought, even though Axie Infinity was not all that fun to play, it made it the 10th highest played game in the world for such a basic game that wasn't that fun to play. That is an incredible feat. And there will be games that are fun to play that have monetization attached to them, where you have assets that have real world value. And that will bring millions and then billions and then trillions of dollars and literally tens of millions or hundreds of millions of players into some of these games. The amount of money that's going to come into blockchain gaming, I think most people just don't understand. It's going to be huge. So what do you think Spores will hit all-time high? I think it'll go 100 or 200x from here is my guess. Looking to buy VRA, do you think timing is now is good? Well, let's take a look at VRA.
I can't say whether you should do anything at all. That's always your decision. But for me, looking at this chart, I'd say that it's got a 70-30 chance of going up. And so that's good enough for me. Reason why I like it, we got a little consolidation there. It's trying to break out. If I was going to be ultra cautious, might wait for this high to properly break before getting in. Then the next resistance point would be at 1 cent, just up here. So I'd like to see it be drawn into there. So the way I would play this is get a little bit on the board and then add a bit more as it breaks through here. Now you could just say, well, why don't you just buy the whole position here? Because it's not really confirmed the breakout as yet. But if we take a step back, this is one of those ones where it made a base here. It's had its high, gone through the bear market like so many other markets have, tried its rebound, which failed. Many markets did that as well. And now it's coming back for its retest. It's not exactly leading the way, but it's responding in the bull market, which is what I want to see. So that's why I would go with buying it. Now, it also hasn't run aggressively, and I'm not chasing it either. So it feels like you could leisurely get into this and not feel like you're chasing the market, even though I suppose from the low here it has moved quite a lot. But what I like to see is the way it recovers from the previous bear market. So when the market's going up, it's recovering. And the next step to that is potentially moving into a new all-time high and breaking out. So I'm not saying it's definitely going to do that. It's just it's got that potential. So this is major resistance here. If we get through that, then the probability of it moving up higher increases. So I'm trying to think, is there a reason why I'd want to wait? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, I might wait just to get a small pullback, but there's such good support. If we just, what happened there? If we just zoom in, you can see there's good support around here, around 0.0069. So I'm not really going to wait for that because it's not big enough in terms of the overall picture. So if I was buying this, I'd be looking for, quite a sizable move, not just a small move towards here. So that little pullback I would regard as a bit of noise as getting into the position. So I would buy it here. For me, this is where I would get it. And if it starts to go wrong, if it just goes down for whatever reason, if it breaks this resistance at 0.005, then it would look more neutral than anything else. And if I've got a small position in here, I don't think it would worry me too much. Where I would get out would be here. So the biggest risk for me would be buying something that actually sort of in a small position that doesn't do a whole lot, and I could have put it somewhere else, which may have been a bit more aggressive. So weighing those things up, it seems fine for me to get in here.
Yeah, it's in an interesting decision point there, right? So it might break to the upside from here, and then it's got a little bit of another point of resistance overhead, or it might break down to that lower trend line. And for me, I like Verasity. Its market cap is at a decent number, so 82 million is the market cap, but I would be tempted to wait to see if it comes back to the trend line that Paul has drawn out there. Because at this point, yes, it'll probably possibly continue to run. Is there some value there? I think there's some value there. Verasity, if you think about it, some similarities to what Twitch is doing. They want to compete in that space, but they want to create like a proof of view for advertisers. So like the advertising is really reaching viewers, and that can be measured, and blockchain can verify better that the advertising is actually reaching the people that it said it's being reached. So there's some transparency with blockchain that I think that narrative will appreciate. And a lot of people aren't talking about Verasity right now, which doesn't bother me. I like that. I like things that are out of the narrative that later come into the narrative, and Verasity probably will come into the narrative later. So for me, it's just that lower trend line right now at the decision point. It might break up from here. If I saw a clear break that it was breaking out cleanly to the upside, I would just short-term trade it and hope for a retrace for longer-term pickups. So fantastic suggestion. I want to jump in the comments. Really good question on VRA. HOGE Finance, I'm not following that one that closely, but Blonde Bros says HOGE Finance was recently shouted out by ICP. I haven't seen that. Let's see, HOGE Finance. It's $14 million market cap. It's down from its highs so it went up in the early bull market, retraced during July. Everything got pretty low during that July. And then a lot of things ran later that year with the metaverse pump. And so there's a lot of zeros there. It's hard to tell how far down it is because there's so many zeros there. But it has been running up. I can't say I know really what is supposed to make them special. The original pure DeFi community powered. I do know that DeFi is out of the narrative. It almost seems like they're kind of playing on some meme coins with like the dogs. They had their contract audited by Certic. Certic is one of the better auditing companies to audit the smart contracts. So our inception was inspired by the phenomenon that originated in Doge, launching an entire crypto subculture. What started as comedic memes and bottomless entertainment quickly matured into an incredible, diverse community. I would have to know what makes HOGE Finance special, and right now I have no idea. HOGE SMP Minecraft server, a virtual brand activating Minecraft Survivor server. So it looks like they're trying to run it on a server. I mean, kudos, they got some good artwork. I would just have to have a better idea of what makes them special to know if I'm very interested in it. The price action, it's gone up, looks like 3x recently, testing some resistance. It sometimes will come back and put in a higher low and signal that it has actually turned around. On this, I would probably be waiting for that to see if it happens. And it doesn't always happen, but that would be what I'd be doing. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I look, it's going up. It's hit resistance. So it's pulled back from there. This spike here could be problematic. So the way it's gone up and then just come, that might have been a sign that there was some news or whatever it might have been, that the market just got a little bit ahead of itself. But it seems to have stabilized on the pullback. And, if it can get through there, that would be a really good sign. So buying it here for me is not a bad move, because I've got my exit point, which would be if it breaks back below, if it can get all the way below here, then a lot of the bullishness has come out, and what was making it run has very quickly been reversed, which would not be a good sign for me. So I don't mind getting out around here or maybe just a bit lower. So I've got my risk reward. The reward is if it breaks through this high, which is a significant high, which is matched with this resistance as well, then it really opens up the upside. Now, the next point would be here. And then if it gets through that, you can see that was support there and resistance there, there could be quite a lot more on the upside. So there's a few things that are basing, and this is potentially one of them. So yeah, I quite like it. So I'd say risk reward for me is to buy it.
All right, let's see. Cool. I want to share, shout out to Kelly. Check out this comment. This is the stuff I like to see. Kelly says, I put $700 into research coin a few weeks ago and it just ran up to $3,500. Just took out initial 700 and bought Jasmine with that. Learning the game. Congrats. Good work. I pulled up research coin after I saw that, and absolutely parabolic move. If it were me, I'd be tempted to pull some more out of that. It went from a market cap, geez, it went 30x from here. And that is such a parabolic move. Often, not always, often it will go into a bigger retrace. Now, I haven't heard of research coin, so I was trying to do a little bit of analysis on the fundamentals. And this is the website that it links to, which I've heard of this before, of like essentially ways to use blockchain to fund research in papers. I like the narrative a lot. I haven't really heard deep analysis on how to make that viable, and I would love to see it, right? Ways that you could fund research and maybe even benefit from the research. That would be incredible. I like to see more market-based approach to research. One of the challenges I think we've seen the last 40 years is a lot of research grants are given by government, but oftentimes there are hidden agendas behind that funding, that the outcomes are skewed towards what the researcher is paying for, saying, we want you to find these results. And you can see it sometimes in the outcomes of their studies, that they reached an outcome that the data doesn't really justify, but you only notice that if you look a lot deeper. And that's because the research is trying to support a narrative that they want to support, whether it's government funded or sometimes by big corporations. And one of the problems is people often produce what the people paying them are wanting, whether or not it's what the data is actually showing. I like research projects that are okay. Like True Science is okay with whatever the outcome is. They're just looking to test and figure out what science tells us and what research tells us the real outcome is. So it seems like they're somewhat along that line. I would love that. I see these kind of candles and it's like, oh my gosh, especially because we're not in the greater bull run. This often leads to a bigger pullback at some point. I mean, a 30x, almost nothing has performed that well. There's a lot of things that have done well. Almost nothing has done that well since just a month ago. That not even a month ago. This is the 6th of November. Yeah, so just, I guess, a month ago, 30 something X. And it's hard to take further profits on this because it's almost like if it continues that run for another day, it could be at like 90 cents. But fantastic home run there, Kelly. Especially that's outperformed just about everything in that short of a time. Maddie Plays asks us, SIDUS, please, should have taken profits like you talked about in your last video. Well, I was looking at the charts. Let's look at SIDUS. Paul, if you, I'd like your thoughts on researches before we move on to SIDUS. What are you thinking about this absolute parabolic move?
Well, first of all, well done for getting in. I'd be really interested, Kelly, in what made you buy it in the first place. Was it a research thing, or was it a chart thing, or was it a combination? As far as straight line moves with very little data, there's not much you can say here other than looking at the actual project and seeing what's behind it. So if it is some form of using research as using this as a way of producing, or I don't know, like if it's got a good following in the market. In other words, if more and more people are coming in here, I was just looking at how many research projects or documents there are on here, and it seems like there are quite a few. Then it's a really interesting proposition. So it seems like they've hit upon a really good vein of a project, and it's more a fundamental thing. So with something like that, I'd be inclined to try and keep a core position, because it has outperformed, and it's one of those things where you just forget about what the position you've got in and just have a look at it in a year's time. And I know that's really hard to do, but this could go a long way if they've opened up something completely unique, which lends itself to the blockchain. So without knowing that much about it, having seen it for the first time, just looking at the chart, yeah, it's gone in a straight line, but there would be a reason for that. The prices are sticking as well. I see the temptation to pull some off and put it in somewhere else, or maybe just bank your profit. That's not a bad strategy, but I would feel like holding a core position, because we're still in this bull market. We still haven't it hasn't run its course. So I think things are going to go potentially much further, much longer than people expect at this stage. So I'd be inclined to try and stick with things for now, as opposed to when we're near the end of it, looking to get out and exit positions and take wine risks down a bit. But very interesting, very solid move. There's no reversal pattern to speak of to say that it should go down, not even a spike. So that's why I'm inclined to try and stick with it for the moment. But yeah, of course, anything that's gone up so quickly and by such a great amount, there is that temptation to exit some of it, and taking away your principal so you can sort of look at it from a more dispassionate point of view is usually a good idea. But I'd like to do a bit more research on the research coin itself, if you excuse the kind of pun that comes out of that, and see what it is that people are getting really excited about. But overall, it's still looking bullish, so I'd have to go with it.
Awesome. So, Paul, that would be a buy. Fantastic home run. It's a little bit tricky when you get in this situation. How much you pull out? You pulled out your initial. So, truthfully, anywhere it goes from here is pretty safe for you, which is awesome. The question is, what decision do you make from here? And that's in your ballpark. Either way, you'll get some more valuable experience in whatever you decide. So it's a good position to be in. All right. What I got into Research Coin was watching Lex Friedman's podcast. He interviewed Brian Armstrong, who co-founded. Brian Armstrong co-founded Research Coin. So yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, I like Brian Armstrong a lot. Okay, it looks like Bro says they started a full meme. This is HOGE Finance, that is. And then they tried to introduce utility after. Yeah, not my type of project. Like, depends on the utility, but a lot of what I like, that doesn't mean something like that can't do really well. Just the predictability is so low on meme coins. Like, I just focus on the side that's just got a little bit higher predictability based on, is the narrative something that can do really well? Who is the team behind it? What problem are they trying to solve? And why I stick there is it's hard enough to be right, but you'll have a much better chance to be right more often if you stay within the more predictable places where you can use your research to give you an advantage for the predictability, because still somewhat unpredictable even with that. It's just higher percent chance of winning, and that's why I stay away from most of the meme stuff, even though yes, sometimes meme coins can go absolutely crazy. Lex and BitBoy, a match made in heaven. Is BitBoy talking about that? I don't know where BitBoy comes into it. Kelly said I only pulled out my initial investment. All right.
Yeah, I mean, now that we know the source of it, I mean, anything that's been on a major podcast, if it was Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, or something like that, it makes more sense as to why it's run up like that. I
So
thought
much,
it was,
and it might have more ways to go because Lex Friedman's podcast is huge, and Brian Armstrong, that's a big endorsement, like him co-founding it. So even with the current market cap, that's actually quite a small market cap compared to what something like that could go to. So yeah, because the market cap's just at 50 million still. Looks like 7.62% is in circulation is all, but the podcast probably happened somewhere around here, and it absolutely is just skyrocketed off and probably can go higher with that kind of strength behind it. At some point, it will have a pullback. Oh, the podcast is a year old. Interesting. Boy, yeah, I would love to see that one. It's not a recent interview. I never did see that one. There is so much information in this space. It's hard to keep track of all of it. Let's see. There was something else I wanted to look at. One of the questions that came in was
SIDUS. We haven't looked at that.
Hey, new to your channel, do you only cover ETH-based tokens only? No, we cover altcoins essentially. So it doesn't matter whether they're on Optimism or Solana or Cardano. We're looking at good narratives that have a good chance. Don't do a lot of talk about meme coins on the fundamental side. Not that you can't suggest them, and we can look at the price analysis, because Paul buys based on price analysis. He doesn't look at the fundamentals behind it. He lets the price and what the price action is telling him indicate whether it makes sense for him to buy. And in that sense, meme coins are just predictable based on a straight price analysis as anything else. So you can always suggest it. I probably won't be very bullish on it, but most of what we cover is altcoins, and I particularly look for things where the fundamentals behind it make sense to me. Oh, maybe he's confusing Ben and Brian. Oh yeah, Ben Armstrong and Brian Armstrong. Yes, a huge difference between those two, I would say. Okay, SIDUS. Let's get to Matty Plays, who asked about SIDUS, and his question here was, SIDUS, please, should have taken profits like you talked about in your last video. Do you feel like it will retrace more from here or break to the upside? So let's take a look at SIDUS. This will be our last suggestion for the day.
Yeah, that's a really difficult question, to be honest, because it's on the run. You know, this is a good trend, so staying with it is ultimately what you want to do. But it's the price action was just probably giving off a bit of a sign that, you know, we're near a short-term top. But in a good market, these short-term tops, you know, they don't retrace that much. So I don't know. It's quite honestly, I don't know whether it's going to pull back more or whether it's just going to turn around and go straight up. I'd like to see it pull back a little bit more, just because it would take the edge off and allow it to consolidate, which would make the next move more sustainable, if that makes sense. So whilst I don't want to see something go down that people own, I think from a point of view of momentum, things can get a little bit too far and need to consolidate, and that's a healthy thing in a bull market. And this has been a pretty much straight up move, and we haven't seen much of a correction. A decent correction would be back to, say, 0049, 50, that sort of area, maybe even a bit more, and it would still be in a bull market. It would still be a bull trend. The big breakout happened over here, so unless it gets back to 0.003, I don't see any change in the bullish view. So from a long-term point of view, yeah, the trend is still up, and whilst it's above the trigger point, which was this horizontal point here, I just don't see a change in that. Now, finessing short-term trading it's one of those games where you can get out and then see it higher and then not want to buy it, and then it starts running, and that can be a problem. So that's the psychology that you're getting into, the trader psychology. So I think it's important as a investor trader to be thinking about what it is you actually want to do. Do you want to stay in this in the long term, or are you going to try and pick the tops and the bottoms? Because even though I might think something's a bit toppy, I wouldn't necessarily get out of it. until, you know, I actually think we've hit the top and it's time to exit, and there's more signs of a reversal. So I would say, looking at putting all that to one side, I think a bit more of a pullback is probably going to happen, just because it started and it has been a very decent run. But I also think it will consolidate and then go sideways and then take that high out. But whether it'll be in the next week or two, I don't know. I'm not sure. So ask for us to look at it again, and I'll kind of update really. But I think when we were looking at it last time, it was from a question of, would I buy it having zero position at that high? And the answer would be no, just because I'd missed a good breakout point risk reward. But this pullback is making it look more attractive, and if it comes back a bit more and consolidates a bit more, that would be a good sign. So rather than thinking, oh, you know, why didn't you get out at the top, I'd be thinking, is the trend still good? Which I believe it is.
I think it is too. And I don't see any major resistance areas close. I think it's just the whole blockchain gaming place has just cooled off a bit, but I think there's more run in it, as this narrative is still being talked about and thought about. And so if there's more run in it, this and some of the other ones are going to go a little bit further, maybe even to some previous resistance points. But you notice, like, the bigger previous resistance point is still 3x higher than where prices are at today. So yeah, we'll see. Like, it could still have some bigger run in it before it turns around. So SIDUS, and they have a second token, which is Senate. Same thing with Senate. Its next bigger resistance areas are like 2x or 3x from where prices are at now. So I think it's just doing a little bit of people taking profits from being ahead. And I think there's a little bit more run in it. So as it runs a little bit harder, I'm going to take some profits for sure on this. A lot of it, I've taken some profits on Myria, and just a few other things got my initials out. And I'll be planning on, if there's another leg up, taking bigger profits. There was Myria is down today by the dip. We did cover that one earlier, and that potentially what it might retrace to, even if it continues in the bigger trend of running. I would rewind after this and check out Paul looking at the charts and just kind of see what you think. But it makes sense to me that it could pull back a little bit more while still doing an overall bigger run. It's just been running so steep. Paul kind of charted out the fan effect that is happening, where it's kept increasing this the velocity or the trajectory. So check out that part of the analysis. Okay, so it's okay to chase green candles right now. Well, sometimes you can make short-term trades. I like long-term positions that I'm buying really cheap. Chasing green candles, the risk with chasing green candles is like sometimes the runs continue and there's pullbacks. I do more of that when my options for buying things that are a really good position are less. Like right now, the majority of what I've been putting money into are the two projects I talk about in that course. And why? Because they haven't really run. It's really, really cheap. And so that's what I think about, is a boat that's still at the dock, and I'm loading up on that. That doesn't mean I won't take some short swing trades on things or let some things ride out longer. But I'm not personally putting a lot of positions into things that have been running a bunch. Sometimes I'll just swing trade it a little bit. Matty Play says, thank you for the analysis. All right, cool. Paul, great show today. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, look forward to the next one. Thanks for your picks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you moving up the timeline so we can make sure we got this in this week.
No problem.
All right. Well, a lot more fun seeing all this price action going on, right? So remember how I used to say slowly and then suddenly. And that absolutely is what happens, slowly and then suddenly. And you're feeling this suddenly, right? And then it's like, remember, I was saying just a couple months ago that you'll feel like you'll wish that you hadn't stocked up more on a lot of these positions. And now some of that has happened. Now, there possibly be some pullbacks. Bitcoin's running. It'll probably retrace. It doesn't stay this hot for forever until the bigger run is ready to happen. Even then, that bigger run can happen over a period of a couple months and then can lead to some savage pullbacks. So I don't think the bigger run is here yet. I think this is just some early bull run action in blockchain gaming and a few other narratives. I did want to point out one that Dr. of Stuff and I were talking about, that we actually covered them before anybody else. And Dr. of Stuff picked up some of this token. You remember the interview we did with Genomes DAO? Genomes DAO has actually been the best performer in the bear market that I've seen so far. So had you picked it up in 2022, it was all the way down at basically 0.015 cents. And it has gone 200x since then. Now, jumping in at this price, well, it's risky. It's up 200x from what it was at. And still, its market cap is only 7 million. So it's not bad. If you remember Genomes DAO, the interview with them is literally 2 years ago. Genomes DAO is doing something that I quite like. And this is why I brought them on the channel, because if they're successful with this, welcome to your DNA vault. So earn money and honestly power scientific and medical research. So essentially, if you do 21andMe or whatever, those different things where you send in, you get your like bloodline, like family tree and stuff, they actually sell that. Even though you're then paying for the test and you get the results, they're then selling your data to research companies, and they make potentially a ton off that data. So Genomes was talking about making it so that you actually own that data, and then you can choose to provide it to be open for research to use it, and you make the money on it. Now, at the time when we interviewed them, it was $500 to pay for the test, but then your genome was like archived and you could allow it to be used for research projects, but they would have to okay it, and they would make a proposal for how much they would pay you to use your data. And really amazing idea of what blockchain can enable. And you're starting to see that come to fruition with their token price doing tremendously since the bear market, and still only being a market cap of 7.6 million. Now, do I buy major green candles like this? If I did, it would only because the market cap is still so darn low, but almost never do I buy after big candles like this. I wait for a retracement. And you see earlier this year, they had a big run and then a big retracement. And these pullbacks are a good accumulation time, not usually in the middle of a run like this. But should they pull back and retrace and even lose half the ground, that would bring the market cap back down to like 3.8 million or lower. And that might be pretty attractive for that. All right. Let me just check a few more things. Jasmine made 37 cents last bull run, currently 0.5 cents. I do like Jasmine. I do own some. Animal concert circulating supply is no good. It's pretty low market cap, and it's not updated very well. VitaDAO is another one like that. Pfizer putting money into that one, apparently. That's interesting. I haven't seen VitaDAO, Kelly. Bro says paid launched EOS, by the way. Yes, it did. Your history moment for the day. Yes. They also launched ShopX, and a few other ones that absolutely did tremendously when they launched. EOS has been absolutely taking off. That's one that they changed the narrative to an AI type narrative, and they went absolutely crazy. So since the bear market, where it bottomed out at about 1.1 cents, and it went almost 20x recently. Cool. ShopX is going crazy. I have not seen that. So I still have a load of ShopX and EOS. I did stock up on those during the bear market. And so I'm hoping they come back around. Now, some people call these projects absolutely dead. This is why I don't sell projects that people are running around screaming that they're dead, is because sometimes they come back to life. And okay, ShopX from its lows of 0.5 cents is all the way up 3x. Cool. Yeah. All right, everyone. yeah, we've seen some good action lately. Remember, boy, these bear markets are really good for making good pickups, which leads to the most exciting time in crypto, which is during this bull run. But it's only the most exciting time in crypto if you've already stocked up during the slow, boring period. So if you've made a lot of purchases during the slow, boring period, you're probably seeing some massive gains on a bunch of your picks, and that makes this part really exciting. And there's probably more to come. There will be some pullbacks along the way, but we'll get into a bigger bull market. And how you know when that bigger bull market is here is when tons of non-crypto people are coming in, and tons of non-crypto people are getting into crypto thinking they're geniuses all the time. And that's kind of one of your clues that it is massive take profit time. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Real quick comment by Kelly. I'm hearing the decentralized science DeSci might be the next thing. That makes sense with a big narrative, right? Along the lines of what you were sharing, genomes is along the lines of that. So Research Hub, genomes, yeah, agreed. I didn't really see that narrative coming, other than when Dr. Steph and I talked to genomes forever ago. I thought their idea was brilliant. Research Hub I hadn't heard of, but I think that idea is brilliant. I've been thinking about how much science has been skewed the last 10 years. And that is something where blockchain can fix it, because there will be greater transparency. But some people literally do not want to fix that transparency because they like being able to skew the research to be able to carry whatever narrative they're trying to push. So if it goes that way, there will be a fight on their hands, because a lot of these players are very politically connected, or they're straight up politicians themselves. They don't want greater transparency. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Enjoy our wrap, and we'll see you all soon. There will be a video on Myria coming out, in Myria nodes, probably be tomorrow. Later today, I'll be joining around the blockchain, or not around the blockchain, around the Ecomiverse later today. So we'll see you all then.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling a parabolic to dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.